Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, dear colleagues, dear participants. Welcome in this last session of our today's grant holder meeting. I hope that you are not very tired and you can make it, because I really am sure that this will be a very interesting session to close all what we started yesterday in the morning, and with a very powerful information and powerful speech from Professor Yunus, and then with our management, and you had this morning as well regional sessions, and now it's the end of the session where we, together with the colleagues from DG NIR, Fanny Serre, and colleagues from DG INTPA, Anton Jensen, will bring you at the last session, which is more related to what we started. Impact. We're looking for impact. We are looking for impact of the project, and therefore you'll get an information on the studies that we have been made as an agency, on the impact studies, on regional impact studies, on capacity building for the closed project 2015. And then Fanny will introduce you what DGs are expecting from capacity building in terms of impact. And then Anton will take you over on the future. What is the future? What we're looking as a capacity building for the future, future programming. So, and then at the end, of course, we'll not forget that we have our, who started, as I said, we come to the end, our head of unit, Ralph Radders, will have some main conclusions. And of course, will be the last chance for you through a Slido that you have been using throughout the 2 days events to ask last questions, and mainly questions will be addressed to Fanny and Anton on what they're talking, but of course as well on what we will, something has remained to you open related to management or to capacity building to your project as a whole. And of course, I wish you a successful continuation as well with all your bilateral meetings with the project officers. I know that many bilaterals have already started today, and of course you'll continue in the other bilaterals. And I want to draw your attention as well to follow with enthusiasm our live events for the e-booths that are there. So you have seen there are 13 e-booths, and then there are a lot of live events which you will follow, and you get more information in order to complete all the information that you are getting on this 1 week grant holders meeting. And I think I'll start now in order not to make it shorter as possible and nicer as possible as well for you, because I think you are quite tired. I'll start with the first presentation, which is mainly related, as I just mentioned, with the Erasmus capacity building overview of the regional impact studies. I think all of you have heard till now, maybe in the regional meetings, so you saw that somewhere we have mentioned links on those impact studies, but I wanted to give an overview on all regions, what was this impact studies. And I think we start with that's something which is in my heart at Gandhi, that we believe that with capacity building, we can do something for the development of societies, and we can, in a way, as he says, in a gentle way, we can shake the world. So, and that was in a certain point, I think that was something that we have seen from our impact studies. So what are those impact studies? What they, where the information came from? Clearly, as you know, the duration of the project is quite long, 3 years, sometimes even more to 4 years. So basically, we based our regional impact studies on the 2015 project results. Of course, we based them on the project monitoring visits, and there you see that there is a huge number of project monitoring visits, and then as well, thanks to all our national Erasmus Plus offices who are monitoring very close as well, at least once per to our project. And then, of course, 210 thematic national cluster meetings that have been held in all regions. And of course, 49 institutional visits, which are held as well. In all those events are held both from National Erasmus Plus office and the agency. Of course, in order to measure this impact, we thought that only based on a paper, that's not the most interesting thing. So what we are doing as well, and you got information maybe in the regional, or you might want to get information as well in tomorrow, you'll see that we have organized, and we are planning to organize what we called regional cluster meetings. 2 regional cluster meetings, very successful one, have been held until now, Western Balkan and in Central Asia. I think on the both cluster meetings, that regional cluster meetings, one in presence and one in online, and I think here as well was a big challenge is that we, with the support of the National Erasmus Plus offices in Central Asia, we could make it to have online cluster meetings. I think both the regional cluster meetings have confirmed the impact of capacity building projects in all levels, but mostly on what we were expecting, individual and institutional levels, and a little bit less maybe at system level. Of course, you'll find, which could be very interesting as well, are regional fact sheets, and those regional fact sheets are a more based statistical point of view, which gives an overview of capacity building on the region, and mainly on the participation of the different countries and the participation of different institutions. But what is the most interesting thing is to see what types of activities are in the region, what is the areas, thematic areas, or which are the areas of study where mainly the curriculum developed have been held, and that's something that gives you a clear picture where we stand. Of course, we are carrying out now a study on the impact of structural projects. The report is ready, and we foresee to publish this study on the impact of structural projects, let's say mid-February, end of February. Of course, the regional impact studies, and of course, you'll see soon, at least for the neighboring regions and Central Asia, our National Erasmus Plus offices are carrying out the national impact studies, which will be published in their website. So as you see, to measure, because we are going toward in the end, although the number of closed projects is very limited, so we have 2015, 2016 is getting now closed, and some 2017, we are focusing very much on those impact studies for one reason, because with the feedback that we getting from projects, feedbacks that we getting from different stakeholders, we would like to a certain point impact and the design of the future program, and I think that's very important. So 2015 in a glance, and I think that's quite interesting to see what the projects have been developed. We could say that there have been more than 2,000 courses developed in 2015, and if you see the number of courses taught in English is quite limited for all regions, it's 43, and that's something which we basically would like to see increasing, because as we know, it's one of the dimension of the internalizations of the universities, but of course for time being, at least 2015 shows that there is a number limited. As well, interdisciplinary study programs are very limited, and only 28 projects are covering interdisciplinary study programs. And I think that's something as well that maybe there is a room for improvement for the future, but that's something that's the figure of today. While we are quite happy to see that 45 of the projects address involve people with fewer opportunities, and I think here when we're talking fewer opportunities in the large term of fewer opportunities, so it's people coming from disadvantaged social and backgrounds, remote areas, or people with handicaps, but I think that's been a very large. Most of the projects, they are very few projects that basically address the thematic of the inclusion, but as a whole, there is a tendency to go more and more and involve people with fewer opportunities. So address by involving the fewer opportunities in the project. quite interesting as well, and something that we would like to see it much higher. It's the number of projects includes placement for internship of students. And I think that's something that we would like to see it more and more, not only because we had a third type of the project, which is strengthening relation of capacity building projects, strengthen the relation of academic area with the industry, with the social outside the, and of course we are asking very much the curriculum development to make this link with the industry somewhere for, but industry in the term that NGOs and everything is included there. So we would like to see very much increase this in terms of internship for the students, especially as a new feature for the new curriculum developments that the projects are involving. And the other part is as well, you know, the importance of the equipments. And in 2015, based on the budget that has been provided at the final report level, 20% of the total budget is dedicated to the equipment. So in terms of outreaching of stakeholders, I think that's quite interesting to see that on the courses developed and the activities that the 2015 projects have developed, we have 28 or more than 28,000 students enrolled in the developed courses, and there are more than 80,000 students trained and participated in mobility. And here, please be careful, it's not in the international credit mobility, it's on the mobilities that are for entrepreneurship, are for testing, so are those type of mobilities for students which should be maybe 14 days, but I think we call them mobility, and I think that's quite impressive number to see how the students have been moving. Of course, we have more than 20,000 participation of academic staff. We're not saying here that there are 20,000 academic staff, because we have noticed that one academic staff can be involved in more projects or can be moved, but there is a high number of participation of academic staff. And when it comes to the administrative staff, I think that's something which we have a number which is more than 4,900. And that's something that maybe for the future, the involvement of administrative staff or the training of administrative staff, especially if we want to empower the governance of the universities, could be thought to involve them more. And of course, we'll see when it comes to the link with the private sector, NGOs, the number of people trained, it's more than 11,000, which I think shows that there is an openness and there is an openness of academia toward the private sector and NGOs, and shows very much that our capacity building projects are contributing to the lifelong learning in many countries where the policy has to start, or Erasmus is not supporting lifelong learning projects, but already with this link and the training of these people, we are contributing to this lifelong learning of program. So now, when it comes to the higher education reform projects, I think we, as you know, the number of structural projects is much more limited compared to the joint projects, but we still have been noticed and has been confirmed that even the joint projects, they can have an impact at system level. Where we have seen mainly this impact, we have seen that in the change of national legislations or related to the higher education sector. I just mentioned before lifelong learning. So thanks to our projects, developments have been done in the national legislation of when it comes to lifelong learning or other areas related to that. We have seen it in the reform of quality assurance systems. So projects that maybe even if they have been working in quality assurance, they have impacted the quality assurance system. capacity building, we cannot say today, I can confirm that higher education reform has been changed but we believe, and at least we have an evidence that our capacity building projects have helped to push the change. And of course, there are a lot of spin-off activities and follow-up activities of our projects, which we believe are impacting the reform of higher education system. What we have been noticed, and at least it was confirmed by our studies, that the ministry engagement in all those structural projects and in all this process has been quite often difficulties because of limited capacity, staff turnover, and sometimes unhours of their role. But of course, this is just a general, but we have very good examples where ministry has been very much engaged. And in the last regional seminar in Central Asia, it was a pleasure to listen how ministries have been engaged in order to support the capacity building projects in structural projects to become to have an impact at the system level. And of course, I mean, it's not a ministry engagement, but it's very pleasure to see that lately Aziza from Uzbekistan informed us that one of the coordinator of the capacity building project, or at least director, he's becoming minister. So in a way, I think maybe with a very sporadic, and I think Ukraine has been the first one opening that the people that were managing capacity building got promoted at highest levels, and we were in a way very proud of that. And I think all of you, now I'm telling that maybe all of you that today are working with the capacity building can have a chance to become a minister one day because I think it impacts the life of. So challenge, I think, as I mentioned in the beginning, we did those impact studies in order to see how we could design, and together with the colleagues that you'll see with Fanny and Anton Yester, so with the colleagues in DG NEAR, with the colleagues DG EAC, and of course DG INPA, we are working how best to design the new capacity building in order to fit what are the real needs of the country and the real needs. So it was, as it remains, that it is felt it was as a structural project as a STEM today, an appropriate tool for funding mechanism to drive a change at system level. So those are certain questions, challenges that are put, and then would need to think how we would respond to the new program to those questions. What have been noticed, and I think it's quite clear, are we involving enough institutions, especially located in less developed countries, but what most important, in remote areas. So there is a trend, and then we have seen lately in the last years that there is a trend to involve more and more institutions outside of capitals, institutions based in the remote area. But question is this enough, or we should go more toward that? And what types of activities can we put today that will increase the access of those institutions to the program? Are we involving enough students? We know that at the end, our final beneficiaries is the student, but of course, what we have noticed in all 2015, but it goes the trend as well for the other years coming, that we not seeing very much involvement of students in the planning and the implementation. And that's something that we should think how we can best involve the students, because at the end of the day, we are developing a curricula for them. We are doing career centers for them. So there are a number of student associations and students movement that basically we have the impression that the student voice is not fully heard in planning and the implementation of our capacity building projects. So, and then what came else? I think it came clearly, and I think this is one of the points that I think we have been going all over those 2 days, is how to ensure institutional commitment. The studies have shown that it's quite difficult to have this institutional commitment. We feel, or we have seen, that the capacity building within an institution, capacity building projects are still in a wide range linked with individuals, and they remain quite isolated projects within an institution, while the institution is not yet getting the full potential and linking those activities within the institution in order to benefit from the impact, and the impact considering the whole capacity building with all range of activities, and here including as well synergies, capacity building, credit mobility, how to bring all those activities together in order to get the best of those activities. And of course, an institutional commitment as well, seen in the other part as a support to our capacity building projects. Sometimes our capacity building projects are facing difficulties because they are not backed up by their authorities at highest level in the implementation of those projects. Clearly remained how to tackle accreditation. Of course, we know, and most of you know, that in countries that there is a challenge the accreditation, especially when we want to start a new master course, a new bachelor, or a new that requires an accreditation, or a modernization of some courses of some that would require accreditation. The accreditation remains something that it's very difficult, and sometimes bring to the fact that the projects during their life, they thought that they wanted to have a new master, but because of the difficulties, they slow down and they go more to modernization rather than continue really battling for this accreditation. And I think that's something that should be tackled in all levels. What about recurrent beneficiaries? I think there I will not go. We have to see for the new program how we might find, if we might find solution in order to limit the participation of recurrent beneficiaries, not excluding, because we are very much aware that even in the future, the capacity building has to benefit from the experience gathered from the recurrent beneficiaries. But on the other hand, continuing if we continue with the idea of capacity building, one can wonder, do these universities need still having capacity building? Because after too many years, we would like to believe that they are able to go alone. But of course, it's all the dimension of the exchange of the experience with the program countries that brings the recurrent beneficiaries in our program. Of course, how to increase institutional endorsement, increase ownership of the project, of the results. And I think here we are quite pleased to see. Of course, we could not see it in 2015, but with the trend that we are seeing, that we have more and more projects which are coordinated by the partner countries' institutions. And we believe that if a project is coordinated, with all the difficulties that might bring for the consortia, because of course there is not that expertise maybe in running international projects, but we still believe that when it is coordinated, and the more active role of those institutions will increase the ownership of the project objectives. Just a transfer of a project from a program country reality to the partner country reality would not have the same benefit as if the countries will take the ownership in running those projects, or partner countries. So I think those are, and of course one of the the closure, but I think one of the most important is how we are going to ensure the sustainability. We have noticed that, of course, we have 2015 projects, and now if we go after 1 year, how many of them are still open, and then can start with the website if that's continuing, or even more if there is a continuation. What we have been looking at our 2015, I think that's one of the topics that can be that we see a sustainability in other forms, so those spin-off activities that we can say, yes, something has remained from that project because something else was started, but there is a tendency that once it's developed and then we come for a continuation and for continuation. So we really would like to see how to ensure this institutional support as a key element for sustainability. So I will not go any more to the talk, but maybe just the website. I think now you have seen it everywhere where the regional impact studies you can find. And of course, when the regional fact sheets, which is mainly statistics, where they can find. And I think I'll stop here. And I'll have the pleasure to pass the floor to Fanny, who will introduce you from a policy point of view from DG NEAR, what they are expecting from the capacity building projects in terms of impact. Thank you, Fanny.
Thank you very much, Anila. Good afternoon or good morning to everybody, depending on where you are. I hope you had nice meetings since the beginning of the week. I'm very pleased to be here with you for this plenary session. I work in DG NEAR, so to explain a bit what we do in DG NEAR, we work with the enlargement and the neighborhood regions of the EU. And we use different instruments to support these partner regions and countries. We have the instrument for pre-accession in the enlargement region and the European Neighbourhood Instrument for the neighbourhood regions. These instruments are the tools that we use to support our country through technical and financial assistance. In our technical assistance, we have peer-to-peer exchanges, capacity building, trainings, twinning. We also have financial assistance to support our partner countries, for example, to have structural reforms, including in the education sector. These are important because these are the main instruments that we use to bring closer these regions to the EU. And we believe that what is done through this assistance it needs to be further linked with the capacity building in higher education projects. This is also the case for the new priorities of the European Commission, in particular of relevance today, the digital and green transitions, as well as the need to create inclusive growth and jobs. On these priorities, it is important to see the capacity building project playing a very active role in order to impact not only the institutions, as Anila said, but to have an impact at systemic level. To reach this objective, we believe that the capacity building project needs to be further linked with the policy dialogue of the countries with the EU. We have our EU delegations in first line in all countries, and they are very active supporting structural reforms. And this activity, this work that is discussed between the EU and the countries needs to also include the capacity building projects. They need to be connected. And we see that often these projects are not discussed, and this is something that can be improved in order to have synergies between what is happening thanks to Erasmus through this capacity building project and what is supporting through other means, through assistance and etc. We know that the impact at system level is difficult to assess. It requires targets and indicators. It's a process that takes time to have a reform of the education system. It's not something you can achieve in a few years. But we believe that it's worth working on it, and it's important to have results to involve further the ministries of education and other ministries when relevant for the project. And this is something that, as Anila mentioned, we are now discussing now that we are working on the future of the program. This is something we want to further focus on how the involvement of the national authorities will make better impact of the structural project at systemic level. I would like also to share with you an information on an instrument that we are developing in DigiNear that is also of relevance for the future of the capacity building in higher education projects. We're starting using a tool that is called Diagnosis of the Education System that will be done with partner organization, but will involve the countries themselves, because we believe that it needs to come from the national authorities to have a diagnosis of the governance, the financing, the quality, the equity of the education system, and to identify key challenges and priority for reforms, both at short and long term. And we believe that such evidence will contribute in the future to also help project manager really define better the project and address what are the key challenges and have better impact at systemic level. So we will continue working on this evidence-based policy making and design of the reforms with our partner countries. In addition, as Anila mentioned, the relevance of the education is very important, and we see that in all our partner regions there is a very high not only unemployment but inactivity rates for young people, skills mismatches, the phenomenon of the brain drain that is a challenge for many regions. And we believe that the capacity building projects, they can really have an impact. Indeed, as mentioned by Anila, through synergies with the society and with the labor market, meaning that we would like to see more and more projects involving the private sector, the enterprises, the innovation ecosystem, the civil society organizations, in order to make sure that they can really make a change on the skills and competences that young people are receiving, but as well in a lifelong learning perspective for retraining, reskilling of adults. We see, in addition, that the capacity building projects are paramount to improve the quality of teacher trainings. In many countries that took part in the last PISA assessment, we saw that there are still great challenges in terms of the acquisition of basic skills. And without basic skills, we cannot build a strong education. So it's very important that the capacity building projects support reforms and support the higher education institution in better preparing the teacher for their careers. This is also a priority that we would like to see more and more reflected in the capacity building projects. In addition, we have youth as a priority, as I mentioned already, and the relevance of the skills is really important. We believe that the higher education institutions need to be involved in new systems that will be developed in the future to anticipate what will be the skills on demand in the labor market. So we would like to see more and more synergies between different ministries that are relevant for youth, ministries of labor, ministries of education, ministries of social affairs, working on the future of the education, including anticipating skills and adapting the offer in terms of training to the future labor market in the countries. So to conclude, I would not like to take you more time, but I really encourage you to seek synergies between projects beyond Erasmus projects, to really have to make connection with other ongoing projects, other assistance that are supported by the different international donors, and to really have in mind that that the impact is essential, and as well the sustainability of your project to make a change at national or even regional level. I will not take more time, but I thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very good continuation with the meetings.
Thank you very much, Fanny, for this interesting introduction from a policy point of view, what we are looking from capacity building. And Anton, please take us toward the future. I mean, Fanny introduced us toward the future, what they are expecting, but I think you'll introduce us a little bit, or the audience a little bit more, what they are looking for in 2021, I think, when the call for capacity building and other international dimension actions will be ready for publication. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Yes, thanks a lot, Anila. It's a pleasure being here. For me, it's a special pleasure always for me coming back talking on Erasmus. I'm a old timer in the Commission. I started 23 years ago working on, any guess from the audience? No, of course not, I can not interact, but I started working on Erasmus. I started off in what was that time DG EAC, Directorate A, working on Erasmus. I left, went to development, worked on primary education development, setting up initiatives like what is today the Global Partnership for Education. So I've been working a long time on this. I then worked on geographical issues in mainly West Africa. And from some time in the autumn, I was sent up to another unit to help work with Erasmus, coordinating Erasmus. What are we thinking, planning for the future? So I got to, I always say I was spearheading our reorganization. I'm coming from a DD with the wonderful name of INSPA, or Director General for International Partnerships. I think it was important for us to go to be a partnership DG. That says quite a lot of, at least, our approach to things. We are not delivering aid anymore. We are more in supporting partnerships. It can be partnerships as you have here on capacity building in higher education. It can be all other kind of partnerships. So let me look a little bit of what we do in the EU. And this is the EU. This is not just the Commission, it's EU and member states. It's very important for us to see things from trying to push a holistic perspective, where you actually are seeing at what are Europe doing. And these figures you have here is sort of our contribution to ODA to education. I assume that most of the audience who sees the figures of 3,475 million of euros going to higher education all know where this is going. It is not going to capacity building, it is the big mobility schemes, but it is an important pie to keep the eye on how is our education aid distributed. If you look at it, I assume what we call the education level unspecified is actually quite a lot is going to basic primary education. So it's just to keep the figures, the perspectives there. When we in December 2019 got a new commission, we also got a set of new priorities. You would see we all got went digital and green. This has definitely been two of the big mantras inside the Commission after, how to say, under the new Commission. We have a push for democracy, European democracy. It's internal. Remember that we have also an economy that works for people. We have promoting the European way of life. And then we have where you could say an entity like Fanny and I, and actually all of us here today, we are pushed is actually position. How do we work on a stronger Europe in the world, not a stronger in the sense of power or something, but a more stronger, more inclusive Europe in the world that offers opportunities for people abroad. So if you look at our priorities we have for the external policies, we have transformed the overall previous slides into these. We have the Green Deal, digital, growth and jobs. Remember, for us, it's when you see growth and jobs, it is actually inclusive. It is inclusive jobs, growth. It's jobs that work for everybody. We have a clear on mobility. We in Erasmus, it's of course part of our mobility to bring people from other parts of the world to study in Europe. We are still in spite of what we see is Europe is the part of the world that receives most students from abroad, be it through grant schemes or just students studying, because the main part is actually not getting a grant. They are coming by their own will and financed it by themselves to study in Europe. We have good governance, democracy, rule of law, and then we have in our development priorities, we have a number of transversal issues. I'll just point to the human development, which include education. It's not like we have forgotten by looking at the priorities above. We have forgotten the human development and are just doing green digital. For DD development, I shouldn't say development. Sorry, I haven't been used to it. For DD INSPA, we have a Finnish commissioner, and as some would know, what Finland will come as their national pride is definitely education system. So we have very clear indications for the part of the world where we are responsible. The commissioner wants a strong point of education. She wants a decent part of our funding going to education. It's around 10% and so on. And this is not where you could fear from your perspective being the primary basic early childhood. This is education broadly. So works like this here will also be part of these targets. Future. What are we doing? At the moment, the Commission are planning all new actions we're doing programming, considering what will we do, how will we do it, how much will we do. At the moment, it's too early to say anything about amounts, what we will do. We will continue support to Erasmus. We will scale up mobilities. We will scale up their mobilities for sure. I don't know where we are, and I cannot say on capacity building for higher education. Certain regions have been underfunded before. We will have to look at how do we allocate the funding. I have a background in Africa, and I think the success rate when I saw project proposals was in Africa was definitely too low, or you could say we had good projects which we could have funded had we had the money, and that's things we will look into. So what do we want? I skip off some of the point here. System-wide improvements, you know that. We will for the future have try to have a focus on countries who have been participating to a lesser extent. I think we this year got one of the last African countries on board. I can't remember which one, participating in project. This is always a pleasure when we see this. Going back to what Anila said on systems and she said it very nicely on to build the systems capacities at the universities. We will also in the future have to look at how can we include less experienced institutions, higher education institutions, that have previously not been involved. We, how to say, we would not like to see the usual suspects. We will somehow expect, Anila was, I think, quite diplomatic, saying that these should be able to stand on their own legs. And there we come back to the pleasure even of seeing the last country in Africa coming in. It's that's positive. We would also like to, how to say, to see innovative ideas. I think we in certain times see recycling of ideas moving from country to country. That doesn't really work. Visibility. It's always an important point for us. We would like to have active projects that promote them at country level. And let me come back. It's also, if we be successful of bringing out the action, we need to think about how can we ensure proper visibility, information at country level. So we definitely from DG INPA hope that you as project coordinator, project partners are sharing your experiences, what you learn, what you gain, trying to build on in support of what also Anila said. So you can, through your work, you can actually also try to ensure that the action gets more successful, more partners comes, and we can reach these objectives. And then yes, we will definitely, as a commitment from the Commission-wide side, not in Plenary but from the Commission, we're definitely happy to engage at country level events, promoting what we're doing, what Europe, what not only what the Commission is doing, but what Europe is doing on higher education, mobilities, capacity building, and so on. And that brought me to your end. So I hope you have had a nice meeting and have enjoyed the things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anton, for this interesting presentation. And I think here I'm looking that there is a number of questions coming. So we'll try to answer to those questions together with Fanny and Anton. The first questions come, could you please, I think it's addressed to me, could you please explain how the impact is then defined and measured? Is it common to classify the impact of projects in terms of direct and indirect? Do we have to meet both, or depending on our program? I think the question is quite pertinent, and I think we spoke quite largely yesterday about the impact. It's an impact that you'll see right away at the end of the project, and it's an impact as well. It's on a long-term impact, which we'll measure only with a questionnaire or with an institutional visit that we'll do 1 year later to see what has remained per. Of course, as I said, there is a direct impact which is related with the results and the outcomes, and they are the spin-off activities, and I think both of them will be measured. So they are not expected if we had not foreseen them in the project. Of course, all projects have an impact, but that, as you have clearly mentioned, will depend very much on the programs and the beneficiaries you have addressed. But it's clearly that for us, all what is impact, that is a direct or spin-off activities coming from our capacity building, it's very nice to see. Yeah, today example, we got a very interesting message from the NEO Israel. I don't know if they are here, but that one of the institutions institutions that have been involved so long in capacity building, they are enlarging the cooperation with other institutions that are in the Arabic world, I think, and that was, as you say, clearly said, it's thanks to the capacity building that they have developed such an internalization and skills to start cooperation with other institutions which are not eligible to the capacity building project. So I think, yes, please put them all, but mainly it's what you have produced, but all spin effect is there. The other question is, are our new national impact studies, are you going to post at the agency website? The national impact study will be published at the National Erasmus Plus office's website, and we'll make a link from the agency website. We will say, look, they are published there. The other question is, and I think that is, I hope that the capacity building training focuses more on innovation, entrepreneurship, and collaboration for more sustainability. Yes, for sure, it covers that. So I take it as a statement rather than a question, because that's clearly that what we are thinking, that at least for what it is aimed, the capacity building training is really to start on those. And then I think, Fanny, that is something that maybe it's for you. How do you foresee the methodology for conducting the diagnosis of higher education systems? What are the roles of different actors?
Thank you, Anila, and thank you for this question on the diagnosis. So we have worked with different partners, with the European Training Foundation and the International Institute for Education Planning, to establish a common methodology that will be used in different regions, in the enlargement and the neighborhood regions. The idea is to really involve the national authorities to build a national team that will include staff from the Ministries of Education, but also from the Ministries of Finance, to have access to data and to have the national authorities, as well as stakeholders that can be from academics, can be from private consultancy working on education, expert on education, could be also teachers or organizations that represent teachers or even parents that will be involved in using together the data that will be collected by the experts in order to design together a common diagnosis on the main challenges. So this methodology uses some questionnaires for each of the sections. So you have a section on the governance, a section on the financing, another one on quality, access, and equity of the education systems at all levels. So it will cover the whole education. And based on this questionnaire, they will collect data in each countries, and this will allow for the design of recommendations that will involve the authorities. So this will not be a diagnosis that will be done by the Commission or by international organizations that will be saying these are the challenges, these are the problems, these are the recommendations. This is something that we want to design with the authorities, and that should be designed by the national authorities. So we expect a strong involvement at political level in the countries, and we think it's important for this evidence gathering that there is good information on all ongoing projects to really have the full picture of the education system in a country. And based on this exercise, we expect that each country will be able to have short-term measures that will be proposed, and longer-term measure that will be more structural reforms that can be taken in the longer term. And based on this, we think that it will help the country, so they will have this tool that will be useful for them to better plan in the time what are the priorities, what are the reforms, how they want themselves to design their education policy and their strategy in the coming years. And this will help the countries, but it will also help us when designing our own assistance. So identifying priorities and deciding why is it important, for example, to prioritize primary education, or why do we support more vets, but to take decision based on evidence, which is not so easy. So this is why we are really happy to have this methodology and to use this instrument. And I think it will be also interesting for capacity building project to use this evidence in the future to really have a better impact. I hope it replies to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanny, very much. And I think we will get the last question for today. I think, and the question is quite, it's coming from Radi. Thanks for the session. And it's is the youth satisfied about the results achieved by the capacity projects implemented in MENA region during the last decade? Wow. Thanks. Radi, I think we showed that we have been quite pleased with the capacity building in the regions, and of course, including here the MENA region. Maybe I can tell you we have not done a special focus on the MENA region for the time being, and not at least for the last decade. So what we presented was the one that we based on 2015. But of course, we can open that. In general, we are, and I just asked my colleague that is working with the projects in MENA region, and in general, we are satisfied in the same level as for the other regions. But of course, if requested, we could have a look on the MENA region. And I think that is the last questions that we are getting from. And I'll pass the floor to Ralph, to our head of unit, who really will conclude this final session and those 2 days of work. And yeah.
Yes, dear project coordinators, dear partners, Anila, Anton, Fanny, thanks for your speaks and for the good summary that you have given on one hand on the results that have been turned out from the regional impact studies. Anila mentioned a lot of comments. And on the other hand, Fanny also draw your attention to the priorities of the Commission. I think with these two interventions, you have a little bit the scenario in which the future capacity building will develop. As you know, we are in the process of defining the new action, the new capacity building action, and probably the first call that we will have for this action will happen in the autumn of 2020. This, if everything goes of course right with the planning of the Commission. And then this means that a selection of projects would take place in 2022. And the first projects would start at the end of the year. So, and then regularly there would be a call each year. Now, if I sum up also what Anila, Anton, and Fanny have said, for the time being, our intention is to have indeed 3 strands in this capacity building action. One strand, which is for smaller projects, and the reason for this new strand is specifically that we want to encourage newcomers to join the project and unexperienced project writers, because we have seen that in the past, a lot of very experienced project proposals were submitted, and we would like to be more inclusive in the sense, more newcomers, more institutions from remote areas, more institutions from the least developed country. We will have a third strand, like the common one, that is focusing on the institutional development of the institutional development by projects, by the capacity building projects. And I think Anila already pointed out that it is very important that not only the project is there, but there is an impact on the whole institution that is achieved in a lot of projects, but it is also in a lot of projects missing. And we want to change. And what is probably the most important is that we are planning to have a third strand, which is especially for the structured projects, structural projects, which means that these will be specifically projects that are designed to have a long-term impact of the whole educational system. And that was one of the points that was, I think, raised by Fanny and by Annika, saying that we cannot deny that there has been an impact in a number of projects on the higher educational level, but we want to see more of this, because that's the final aim of the capacity building, to have an impact on the structure of institutions and on the whole educational system. And with this new third strand, we hope that we can achieve this. So you have a little bit the scenario of what you can expect in the future. A specific point from my side is always on the point of sustainability and on dissemination. Let me just say, it is not, these projects in capacity building are not like the projects in DG research. And the most of you come from an academic area where you are used to do research projects. You do a project and then it finishes after 3 years, and then it's fine, and you have an output. But that is not normally what we expect from a capacity building project. We would like that this project has much more duration than a research project, and which is simply finalized after the project ends. And there are then publications made, and then it's over, and you go to a next project. We want you to look on this aspect of sustainability from the beginning of the project. And normally, you should already have foreseen this in the proposal. So if you have not taken this carefully into account, it's now the time when you come together for the first time with your project partners in consortium meetings, online or later in situ, that this is taken up seriously and to work on this. How to ensure that your project will last after after its finalization, and especially, of course, when equipment is used, and Anila told it, it's 20% of the budget, and it's a lot of money. We want that this project is used after the end of during the project, but also after the project for the purpose of the students. Very important for us. Hand in hand with sustainability goes also the point of valorization and dissemination of results. These are equally important, because if you don't provide your stakeholders, especially, we said this several times, the ministries of education, if you give no information to them on your project, or if you even hide your project in your institution because you think you are doing fine, you are delivering the result, but at the end your rector does not even know that the project exists, that's not what we want. We have a capacity building. Capacity building means that through internationalization, through our projects, also you develop your institution. That is in terms of the human resource department, who will, in line with individual mobility, who will be responsible for the funding of the co-funding of the project, or will provide you help in doing the report. We want you that you inform your colleagues about your project. And you can believe me, often when we do so-called institutional monitoring visits, we see that at the same institutions there are different projects, and one does not know what the others do. And sometimes they are even working in a similar area. So that are things, I think, which you should take into mind when you are developing your project. What you should also know, it's expected from you that your project is implemented with the highest standards and the quality. All the project officers that you will encounter in this conference will be helpful and will support you. But you should also remember that we will do a strict monitoring of the project. We are using public money, as you know, from the European taxpayer, and it can be expected that the money that is spent and the results can be seen, and that they are very positive. The purpose is not to provide a grant to finance the salary cost for persons. The objective is to make a significant change that makes a difference to the on the institutional and on the systemic level. We have a lot of challenges, as mentioned by Professor Yunus, and we all need to engage in a wider perspective than our own individual work. My colleagues have developed this grant holders conference with a lot of effort because it was for the first time a purely online meeting with a totally new concept. We have developed the e-booths for the first time. So I hope that when you look once back to this conference, that it will be inspiration for you and at the same time a support. Thank you very much to all of them for being in this final meeting at the end of the day. I know it is the last one and it is a long day. I wish you all the best for the coming days, especially in the bilaterals with the project officers and the other meetings and the e-booth. And please take into consideration my last word. Whenever you encounter problems in your project, it's better to put them on the table as soon as possible. We will help you, but if you hide them and you run into difficulties, we may come into a situation where it's simply too late to help you. And we have to say, you have to take the own financial risk that is involved in it. So please remember this. We are there to help you, but you need to address the problems. Thank you very much and a nice evening.